Okay, everybody, welcome to the Before 3 to Succeed, Birth to 3 presentations. This is the last of 3 that we have filming. This one is on parenting stress, talking about keeping it all together. We're going to go through some slides. We're going to discuss. Everybody feel free to take part in the discussion. What comes to mind first discussion point, when you see this photo? What are some thoughts that you have?
Mom and the little one have had enough. She's
Yeah.
ready for a break and they need a nap or a snack or something.
Yeah. I think I see that same exact thing. It's like this is a moment where they're sort of just taking a moment, right? Both of them have plopped down, clearly there was a plan for the day. They have some really great outfits on, so I feel like they're at an event. And it's just time to take a moment, and it looks like the little girl is just not having any part of what the plan might have been for the day. Anybody experienced anything like this before?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. Me too, definitely. Whether we're a parent, a caregiver, a provider, everybody's experienced moments like these, and we do so at home, we do so out in public. We had some really great discussion last week on challenging behaviors and meltdowns about situations like this. So it's definitely a big shared experience. So we really want to sort of open the doors to talk about it. I feel like a lot of times we're not able to talk about it. There's, we feel maybe embarrassed, or that it's sort of like a personal situation where it is such a widely shared experience. It's great to be able to share and feel like we're not alone, and sort of have that support in the people that we talk to. So let's dive in. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
All right. So understanding stress, parenting stress, and just human adult stress happens to everyone. We have good, healthy, motivating stress, and then we can also have bad, unhealthy, or continual stress. So our healthy, motivating stress is what helps us face challenges. In times of stress, our body's response is releasing stress hormones. And when we have good stress in helpful situations, that can be helpful, getting that stress response. But when we have that prolonged stress, those stress hormones that are just continuous can impair our physical, mental, and emotional health during those times. So does everybody feel like they've had good stress experiences in their life? Can anyone name for me what healthy stress might be?
Getting a new job.
There we go. Yeah, nice. Getting a new job. You face lots of little challenges in that moment, which is sort of encompassed by the one, big life change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any other healthy, motivating stress? Maybe before you take a test, right? Or for people who run or do marathons, maybe the day before, or the training up to a marathon. Or back in the cave people times where we maybe had like a saber-toothed tiger, just being specific, but something like that, right? Where we've got a challenge and we just immediately need to get away. So that sort of is what we could view as the root of our stress response that now leads us into the struggles we have in our society nowadays, like taking a test or getting a new job, which are a little bit different than what our ancestors experienced, but our body still reacts in a very similar way. Any other positive, stressful moments? There's almost too many, right?
Maybe meeting new people.
There we go.
New relationships.
Yeah. Or even just going out to big public events, having that stress of like planning ahead, what am I going to pack for my child? Where am I going to park? All that healthy stress can help with planning, but it can easily turn into an unhealthy stress if it either becomes a level too high or prevents us from doing these things. And we're going to talk a little bit more in detail, but that's, a great example. So let's talk a little bit about what our physical stress response is. So Our bodies get ready for action. Regardless of the stressor, our body's stress response, our body's response is to quicken our pulse, so our heart's beating faster, our muscles tense up, get ready to move. We breathe faster, and our brains increase activity, and we use more oxygen as a result of all these things working together. So it happens at different levels. So when we're sitting down to take a test, our body's stress response could look different than if we are like facing a predator, So in different levels, but it does happen. So maybe next time you experience a stressor, you might notice some of these things happening and be like, oh yeah, it does happen like that. Yeah. Okay, great. So anybody ever sort of recall any of these things happening to them in moments of stress?
Yeah, first day of high school. You want to make sure you look nice, and you're just excited and panicked all at the same time. And
Right.
yeah, I remember all those feelings.
Yeah, maybe your face gets flushed and you just like almost don't even know what to do with that energy. Yeah, and it's sort of hard to focus when your body's doing this, right? Focus on other things. There's only maybe one thing so in that moment, the first day of high school, you're focused on like, how do I look? And you might not necessarily be remembering like meeting all your teachers and like what they discuss in your class syllabus and what might be expected of you for the year, because you have just got that narrow focus. Because, that's sort of what we might be focused on in high school. I think that's really common. That was definitely me too. Anybody else, we've all experienced this? Yeah. So let's talk about when positive stress can turn into negative stress. We can get health problems if our stress response, our body's stress response, goes on too long or becomes chronic. That can happen when our stress, when the stressor that we're facing, when the challenge that we're facing is constant, or if our body's stress response just continues after that challenge has subsided. When we get to that point where our stress response is continued and continued and continued or chronic, these same physical responses that were helpful can turn hurtful. They can suppress your immune system, which helps us fight off disease and other sicknesses, other issues, our digestive system, which helps us process our energy, sleep, which of course helps restore our body, and our reproductive systems, which all can be affected. So this really, we might not think of it actively, we might not notice it at the time, but it really can have a big effect on our physical body, which can then affect everything around us. When we're having problems, these are some pretty core problems pretty core systems in our body, and when we're having issues with them, it really can have an impact on how we go day to day. Anybody have any thoughts or comments on that?
I know that I lose a lot of sleep when I'm stressed. I'm busy thinking about other things when I should be sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens to me too. I think that happens to a lot of us, right? That's sort of really frustrating too, because you feel helpless, right? Where you could be ready for bed, you're laying in bed, you're waiting for sleep to come. And then for me, the frustration and the sleeplessness increases because I'm frustrated about it. So I've got, the stress and then the frustration that both adds into that. And when I don't sleep well, my immune system is low, my digestive system gets wonky, my reproductive, my whole body rhythms, they just go weird. Absolutely, it happens to all of us. Let's see. So let's talk about some of our stressors. Does anybody have any life stressors? For me, one of my life stressors definitely is making sure that I'm keeping things tidy. When I get stressed, I tend to let things fall down. So one thing I try to do in my home space is to make sure that I'm not letting things go. So And because of who I live with, my mom demands that things are, kept up, and she's being real nice by letting me stay there. So I'm always working to keep that stuff up. So my life stress is one of my life stresses is making sure that I'm really being conscious of it, because I tend to let that fall off my plate of things to do. So that's something I'm conscious of and thinking about. Does anybody have another life stressor?
Student loans.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Student loans, that's something that a lot of us bear, right? And making sure that sort of fans out in financial stress in general.
Yeah.
Not just loan payments, but other bills, either outstanding or even if you're on top of it, just making sure that not only that you're getting the money to be able to pay it, but that you're remembering to pay it. I fear forgetting to do stuff. Even if I've got it on my plate and I'm thinking about it, I fear accidentally doing that. So absolutely, that's a big life stress. What about children?
Not sticking to a schedule is a big stressor for me with my kids.
Okay. So veering off.
Yeah, because often with that comes misbehavior, tiredness, and derailment.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. Sort of making your time marks as you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Any other stressors that kids sort of help to lend to? I think time is a big piece of it, right?
If I make sure I have enough time to give to my daughter and support her, whether it's with school or with things going on with her friends, or just sometimes she just wants the extra time, but then I might do that, and then I never exercised for the whole week, or there's things that I put her before, but then I realized I didn't do somewhere else, but she's the priority.
When we've got sort of that one focus, other things fall to the wayside, and so that balance of keeping things all together and all on track can be a big stressor. Mm-hmm. Any other stressors? I mean, there's tons, right? My car is a big stressor for me. I don't know that much about cars, so if something comes up or something happens, or even just the concern that something might come up or happen can be a stressor for me, because it's something that I don't feel very knowledgeable and experienced at. So my car is a big stressor. I know here in Michigan that's required for us to have, when possible, to have cars, because it's a huge, huge issue when we don't. And I think we've all been in moments where our transportation was in question, and it just was like a devastating situation. Mm-hmm. So definitely my car. Any other life stressors? Come on, guys, we've got tons.
Sometimes I feel like the weather.
There you go.
The super frigid period, and it's not even the nice part of winter anymore, and it's just dark and windy and cold and icy. I feel like I realize I miss my friends, but I'm cold. And same when it gets super, super hot, that's not fun for me. So for me, the weather can play into it, because it changes what I might do or how I spend my time.
Yeah, it limits our social lives, for sure.
Or you're just outside shoveling when you could be doing something else.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes up time for other things.
Yeah.
My pipes froze recently, so that
Right,
was a
right.
massive stressor.
I remember
that had
that.
to do with the weather. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, and it makes you late for work.
no water. Yeah,
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
do the dishes.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we haven't even really branched into possible work stressors, right? Meeting deadlines that are required, getting to all the places that we need to on time, showing up as our best self. These are all things that stress us out alone, and then we factor in these other life stressors and how they sort of weigh in on us being able to do that. And same thing with parenting. Showing up as our best selves as a parent or caregiver, that is affected by every other thing in your life. So absolutely. Any other stressors anybody can think of?
I think like self-imposed stress, like
There you go.
trying to be the best parent you can be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think I just am overwhelming myself with that. And I just need to take a step back sometimes because, you know, I have one child, you know, an only child. So I put a lot of pride and effort into that.
Any other stressors we can think of? There's tons, but I guess money's a big one. Time's a big one. Being able to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves the credit that we deserve. All these things, they factor into stuff. So let's talk about how our stressors, ones that we brought up or new ones we can think of, how do they help us?
For me, it just kind of helps me prioritize, like, okay, I need to take care of this, this, and this, and then I'll have time, you know, for fun things.
So yeah, of course, stressors can really help us to figure out how to prioritize the things that we need to do, right? Giving us that blueprint that we need. What are some other ways that our stressors can help us?
I think they can be a motivator.
Absolutely.
Because when there's some obstacle in your way, then you have to push through it and get over it. And sometimes you're better off for it. So
Yeah.
it's hard to see it in a positive way, but sometimes you have to and just push through it.
Right. Yeah. We rarely think of stress as a positive thing, but without it, we probably would have trouble getting motivated, right? We need to have moments where we're faced with a challenge or we're faced with a problem to solve, and that's what helps us to overcome things or to move on to bigger and better, to get that new job, to ace that test or whatever other challenge. Any other ways they can help us? I think motivating us even to just be the best we can be, like you were saying before. Having that internal stress drives us to move forward, to explore, to think outside the box, to think of the best ways we can be a human, that we can be an adult, and that we can be a parent, right? Thinking outside the box in that way. Any other way? I know it's so hard to think of stress in a positive way, so it's hard for me too to think, gosh, how does my stress help me? It motivates me, helps me see clearly a plan, helps me make decisions. So how can our stressors be harmful to us?
You're not sleeping at night, you're just worrying about things, and
Yeah.
that can not prepare you better for the next day.
And it just sort of adds on to the stress, because now, in addition to the life stressors we had, now we're feeling not our best self, right? So definitely that long-term prolonged stress. I definitely am the type of person to tend to internalize it, so that I really identify with what you're saying.
I think sometimes you can't even get out of bed. It gets really, really overwhelming.
Absolutely, it totally can be. And that's not even factoring in the stress of being a parent, right? Like you've got your kids there and you've got to get to work and everybody needs everything. And sometimes you just need to have a moment, right? Parenting vacation days should be written into societal norms. There should be.
That'd be fantastic.
Right? Or even for those of us who don't have kids, I'll take it, right?
When you think about your kids and if you have these ongoing things, if you're tired and you're edgy and sometimes you just resort into not using the best method of communication, so then before you know it, everybody's just bickering and yelling and you're like, just go to bed, and then everybody's upset and before you know it, it'd be easy for it to turn into days and weeks, and all you know is that you're just stressed out and everybody's yelling at each other, and you just may not even be able to see it clearly because you're, oh my gosh, we gotta do this, I gotta pay this bill, I don't get paid till this day, they need money for snack. You can just really start getting overwhelmed, and then before you know it, everybody's just cranky, and all you know is everybody's cranky. You can't really, it's hard to roll it back and be like, we're all cranky because this happened, and is going on, sometimes it's hard to see that.
Yeah, that snowball effect that we spoke about in a different way last week for challenging behaviors and meltdowns is definitely playing a factor in here, where, you know, we've got one stressor and it kind of snowballs into affecting other things in life, and now it's affecting us, and maybe we're not communicating so well, and we unintentionally escalate the situation with those around us, and now everybody's upset, and now the snowball is 3 times as big and it's halfway down the mountain, and really there's no way to stop it. So absolutely having those interpersonal effects of your family, your friends, your coworkers, everybody around you can kind of feel it, right? Any other ways our stressors can be harmful?
I think it can make you like forgetful, like you were saying earlier, like where you start getting flustered and all of a sudden like that's all that's on your mind. So like an example that comes to mind is like my cousin recently like was super stressed out about this like family thing that we had going on, and she forgot her child's diaper bag. You know, so of course we had to run to the store and like buy duplicates of everything, you know, because something just is, you know, because she was just freaking out about getting out the door. She was running late and they were grabbing food and snacks and all of this, and then boom, all of a sudden the diaper bag's not with us, you know. So
Yeah.
I think just that, or I know like people that like will forget to eat when they're too stressed out, or you know, it can go the other way too.
I know I feel that a lot too when I've got so much on my plate that I'm constantly worried about things falling off. And every once in a while, if I catch something as it's just fallen off my plate, I start to question all these other things that could have possibly fallen off, and I had no idea, right? So as adults, as providers, as parents, as humans, we all have lots of life stressors. So keeping it all together is just, you know, a big undertaking. And certainly we have moments where things just sort of fall off. And we're like, oh man, I can't believe that just happened. And I don't know, if you're anything like me, then I start beating myself up about it internally, and I'm like, geez, why, how did that happen? How did you let that happen? And then it just gets like worse, right? So then it's easiest to just sort of restart the day. I'm like, you know what? Today is over. Gonna restart. Everything's gonna have possibilities for being better tomorrow, depending on what the issue is, right? So we talked about physical, right? Personal, sort of connected effects of stress, affecting those around us in our interpersonal communication. Lots of different ways where our stressors can be harmful. And even just in the concrete way of our stressor for not being able to pay our car bill or our rent bill or our phone bill, and then whatever it is goes away. And I have to find another place to live, or I have to figure out a way to turn my phone back on, or I have to, you know, really hope that nobody repos my car because then I can't go to work. All these other concrete ways that our stressors can be harmful just in the outcome of whatever that, that problem would be. Do our stressors affect our parenting or our caregiving?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
It makes me yell. It does. Yeah. And I feel like as the day goes on, the louder I get.
Any of our life stress can affect how we work, like we said before, interpersonally with everybody. So of course, that can affect how we work with our kids. And even when we're when we're trying to be our best self amongst stress, things happen, right? Maybe we don't always say things in the way we mean to, or we don't always have the patience that we intend to when working with our kids, which, I think happens to everybody. But being conscious of it and trying to be aware is a big step towards sort of coming to that hurdle when you get there. How do we cope? Both recognizing what stresses us as well as how we respond to that stress can really help us to understand how we can sort of develop our healthy coping mechanisms. So what are some of our stress responses? What do we do when we get stressed?
Give myself an adult timeout.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's a healthy coping
In the
mechanism.
bathroom with the door locked.
Music,
Yeah.
cooking.
So these are great coping mechanisms, but what is our physical stress response? What happens to us inside? What does it manifest as in our bodies?
I feel like I'm just getting tight, and then sort of that, like, I can feel like that agitated feelings.
I think I clench my fists sometimes.
Yeah.
I just get overwhelmed and I don't realize I'm doing it, but it's happening.
And then you feel it later and you're like, oh man, I must.
Yeah.
I do that with my jaw,
Yeah.
and I grind my teeth at night too, so I am always aware of like right in here. So I feel that muscle tension too when I do that. And I definitely, I can go like a little frantic, and I start moving like 100 miles a minute, or whatever amount you want to put in. I start moving really quickly. And sometimes my mind goes blank, which is even the worst one, right? Where you're just like, and I'm not quite sure where to go from here. What are some other things that happen to all of us? I want to hear if you're comfortable sharing some other experiences, or if we think about like what stressed us out really bad today. Today in the car, someone honked at me, and I felt that was wrongly done. I was telling Autumn about it earlier. I felt that was a misplaced honk, and so misplaced. It was misplaced, yeah. And so my stress response, I was like a mix of like, what? And also I'm a provider, so I was like, I hope that you can calm down today. Like thinking about that other person that is sort of a misplaced extreme reaction, and certainly no fault of mine. And so there must be something else going on. So I was kind of on that trail, but I know that not everybody always goes down that trail. That's the trail I take. So I was anxious for the rest of the ride. I was a little tense, and I just kept going, what? In my head over and over. Maybe there were other words too, I don't know. But that was something that happened to me today. So anybody else have any, or with your kids this morning, getting ready?
I wake up easy. I'm usually a decent morning person, and then the other part of my family's not. So I'm like, sweetheart, we have to get going because you're going to have to eat breakfast in the car. That I try to not, even though it's making me panic, I try to not.
Try to be outwardly calm.
Yes, I do. And okay, honey, in 10 minutes we have to leave, And then that's when the realization hits, like, I haven't brushed my hair. I didn't eat. What shoes am I going to wear? Like, this is why, so I try to, I try to stay calm. Try to stay calm on the outside.
Anybody else have some other experiences dealing with this?
I was agitated this morning. I was going to work out, and my puppy has been getting herself tied around this tree that is in the yard. It's the only tree in the yard. And, it's not anywhere near where she would need to go. I'm like, why are you over there? And it's like this idea of like, you should stop doing that. But obviously, like, she's a dog, and she just is going to keep going over there because she wants to go over there for whatever reason. So it's like raining. I'm like running late to the gym. I don't have any shoes like right by the back door. So I have to like go get shoes on and all this. And then my shoes were muddy, and I was agitated.
It puts sort of like a damper on the first part of the day. And depending on the stressor, it could be the whole day. Still think about getting honked at, right? Yeah. I'm still carrying it with me. Like, what? Why? What? I think we've all had moments like that. I wake up and then, maybe my alarm didn't go off, or I forgot to set it the night before. And even though I woke up in time where I'll probably be able to get there, that happened to me last week, as I got here at a time that was okay, but I still just felt frantic in the morning, right? Like it totally changed my whole demeanor as I was getting ready, because the whole narrative in my head was like, what? How could that have happened? Like, how could you let that happen? And even though it all turned out okay, so I was really lucky to wake up at an okay time naturally, I was like stressed about it, right? So when working with kids, when your mind goes blank, because that's definitely happened to me before at nannying, Danielle's like, yeah. It almost like don't even know where to go from there. So, what happens to you when that moment happens?
I think when the girls, I babysit the first time, they get them ready in the morning, it's kind of like that, like running around, 'cause I don't do it that often. But if we do have a stressful morning, I always try to send them off, like, okay, I hope your day is a little bit better. Try to have like 5 minutes in the car where they can try to make it a little bit better. We talk about how they're going to make it better.
I like that, kind of setting the scene of like, okay, that's done, that happened, but it's done. We're acknowledging that it happened, and that was our start. But let's make a plan of how we can turn it around. That's a great, great method, and it's almost as if you were a provider in working with children. That's a great, great way. I wish I could do that with myself effectively. Right? And super hard, because nobody talks back to me like I do, right? It's just, it's rough. It's rough in there. So let's talk more about, so we talked about our stressors, our stress responses, what happens, but let's talk about some healthy coping mechanisms that we use, or helpful at least, right? Things that really help us out to take a moment. So I found some pictures here of things we could do with and without children, right? Because sometimes when we're feeling stresses and we need to take a moment, we don't always have the option to do it without kids. So we want to be able to involve our kids and model these healthy coping mechanisms so our kids can learn to deal with stress in a healthy way. So, you know, we're creating a generation that's able to be self-sufficient, right? So let's talk about mommy timeouts and other helpful coping mechanisms.
So mommy timeouts are usually deep breathing techniques, and I really truly like to take in a really deep breath and hold it for 10 seconds and then slowly let it out. However, I have tried doing it with my son before, and oftentimes he is just too elevated. He can't do the deep breathing technique at that moment. So then we become anxious, more anxious. So that's why sometimes the mommy timeout is necessary to be able to do it independently and then maybe come back and help guide him.
Any other sort of helpful coping mechanisms we do? So I love the deep breathing, meditation, or even sort of a preemptive meditation. One of the moms I work with says she does that every morning. She gets up before everybody and she has some time to herself to just gather in the day and have like a quiet, peaceful moment, make a warm morning beverage, coffee, tea, whatever you like, and just sort of, you know, take in the sunrise, and then before your day gets a little chaotic, right? You got to find your even balance so you can help everybody else start off in a balanced way.
You know, when I worked in the daycare, I had just a little section. I had like pillows and blankets and books, so it wasn't negative. And I feel like if they were feeling anxious or anything, I could just ask them to go take a minute, they could read a book. It was always there. So that kind of helps. They can learn those taking a minute or breathing or something like that. So I try to suggest that to some parents. Or
so taking a calm, quiet, or even for me as well, sometimes having music, right? Like when I'm trying to get stuff done at work, and I have the stressor of, okay, this needs to get done, it's a big undertaking, and I need to sort of focus and take my moment to be present, I'll put my headphones in and I'll pick something that works for me, which is totally different for everybody, right? But something that works for me that helps me sort of zero in and be present, be mindful. These are all sort of ways of being mindful. What are some other helpful coping mechanisms? These are the ones you can think of, or some pictures that we see?
Just be outside, and so sometimes, well, when the weather's nice, and that would be the thing, like, okay, let's go outside, even if we swing together, or she plays and I pet the puppy, or go on a walk. That would be something that would be nice that we could do together. Because, you know, when they're little, like you said, your son, he could sit with some Cheerios, your daughter couldn't. You know, you gotta figure out what works. I was famous for pulling out bubbles. Like,
Nice.
bubbles just seem to make little kids happy, so I would keep them with my cleaning products, and if she would get crabby, sometimes I'd, okay, bubble time! Yeah, it doesn't even matter, you know, like bubbles is fun, and it would just kind of break it, and, you know, give it away, and I've always enjoyed, like, drawing and Play-Doh and things, and, you know, here, but we can, it would be something that we could do together, because it was something that we both liked.
So taking moments to do that, going for a walk, getting physical. So if you can walk, or some people go for a run. I'm not a runner, but I wish I could be. That would be a good thing to attain to. Know a lot of people who run, and that's something that's a huge healthy coping mechanism for them. I know people who just don't feel good unless they go for their run or their walk that day. When possible, taking our kids really helps to sort of instill that method for them, right? So even if they're walking or if they're in the stroller, they're sort of taking their moment, and even if they're the thing that's stressing you out, they're the person that's your stressor, maybe if they're calm, they can have that change of scene and take a moment to observe the things that come by, and you can sort of change the subject and talk about the things that you're seeing, the things you're experiencing. We spoke in our first presentation in Learning and Development how important communicating and describing and teaching the objects as you see them, daily tasks as you see them, and so walks can be a great way to sort of switch up the scene and work on our active learning. What about just in the vein of what you were saying, Lisa, just taking a moment to stop what you're doing and just play, just have like a fun, playful moment. Sort of cutting through the stress when possible, and just say, you know what? Cleaning up this room is really stressful, and it's just not working the way we're trying to do it. We should take a 10-minute bubble break, right? Or if the weather's good, let's go play with the hose or the sprinkler for, 5-10 minutes. We're going to get some energy out. We're going to laugh and really get in a good mood, because who can be in a bad mood when we laugh a bunch? And then we're going to come back in here and we're going to try again. Right? If that's possible. Not all kids can work with a transition like that. But for some kids, that could be a great, pleasant surprise in the middle of our struggle, in the middle of trying to get stuff done. Wait, what? We're going to stop this? Like, Mom seems a little frustrated right now, but we're going to stop and go have fun? Okay. It might be easier to transition back into doing some hard things. Like I said, that might not be for everybody. That certainly wouldn't work for all the kids that I've worked with, but it could be fun. It's been helpful in moments every once in a while. Taking a peaceful moment, reading a book. For me, watching TV. I love TV and movies. So that helps me to take a moment escape for however long I'm watching. I'm able to sort of put aside whatever's going on with me and sort of dive into another story. That is a coping mechanism that was instilled in me at a very young age. As soon as I learned to read, I was given books that helped me escape to anywhere I wanted to. So that is something I did from day one. And we're always looking to use that active learning and promote literacy. So reading, which transitions into watching TV as I got older and started making other decisions on my own. But being able to escape in a story and doing it together, having that shared experience can be really fun. I loved doing that when my dad would read, so that was cool for me. And you remember it, or at least I did. Nice moments to have together. Any other? What about just everyday, making everyday moments fun? So I have a picture here of a woman singing while she's doing some housework. So even if you're taking a moment to sort of work on the things that stress you out, like for me, housework is stressful, but what helps me is if I have to undertake a big task, I will put on some loud, good music, and I will like make it an active, fun task. So even if what I'm doing is like not the most fun thing to do, like folding a bunch of laundry or, whatever, or vacuuming, I'm doing it in a fun way, right? And then getting kids involved. Maybe they can help to pick a song, they can scream and yell too. I remember doing that from a very early age. It also allows for all of us to be loud together, which we don't always get to do, all the time. We're being told to sort of quiet down, keep it under control. So if we can sort of funnel our energy to being out of control a little bit within reason, it's always a fun way to do stuff together. Taking time to laugh too. I think humor always sort of cuts through, even if it's just for like a tiny moment, stress. So I'm constantly trying to make myself laugh, but also maybe not constantly, with inappropriate moments, right? I try to find my moment, but I try to cut stress and tension with a healthy sense of humor. Mm-hmm. Hopefully I do it in an effective way. Anybody else have some other fun coping techniques?
You were talking about singing to songs and things like that. We like to sing through the routines of the day. Okay. So maybe like, now we're going to wash the dishes, or something like that. And then the kids will dance or do whatever. But it makes things fun, and we're getting things done, that we're supposed to be getting done. Mm-hmm. But it keeps them more engaged, I think.
Absolutely. It keeps me more engaged too, mm-hmm. right? Being more active in things that I'd rather just not be thinking about or doing. Making things fun. I make up my own songs all the time. I have like a whole dog walking song that I sing out loud to myself throughout the neighborhood as I'm walking. I know we have other coping techniques, guys. What about cooking? I love to cook. So if I'm like, stressed, for me, not everyone does, so it's not good for everybody, but for me, I love to cook. I don't like to clean up anything from it, so that's, a double edge that's always there. But I love to cook because I love to be able to sort of like be creative, create something new, and see what it turns out as.
I like to drive. That's one thing I like to do. And my kids, ever since they were teeny tiny, would love to go for drives too. And it would put them to sleep. Like if they were in a full out, having an episode, no coming back from it, stick them in the car and go around the corner, and they were usually out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, now they're a little older now, and they still like going for drives. I think when things are a little tense, we get in the car and, we might go through the park, and it just makes them happier.
Anything anybody else can think of?
I take baths.
Ooh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm notorious for like getting super stressed out and just going and starting a bath randomly. I just disappear. And my wife will be like, where are you going? Like, I'll see you in an hour. Yeah. Like, I just need some time.
Don't come in until the timer goes off. Let's talk about when life stress happens. One of the first steps we always need to sort of overcome, the biggest hurdle, right, is focusing on our concrete needs. So making sure that we, our family, our loved ones, those that we're caring for, we have the food, water, housing, health and healthcare, transportation, both of those things, clothing, bills, employment, these things that we just need to have sort of figured out in order to be able to focus on these other parenting, life stress things. So we want to tackle those big things first, those big basic needs. When your family is struggling to meet your concrete needs, it can be extremely difficult to really even try to focus on anything else or pay attention to anything else. So there's always going to be help out there if you can find it. And we here at Oakland Family Services have some ways to be able to find resources. So if you ever struggle to meet your concrete needs, please contact Oakland Family Services or see me after this presentation, or you can always call or email me with the contact information I'll give you, because we have ways to help and we'll certainly do our best, but you won't know unless you reach out. So certainly please let us know. Second step, you want to reach out to your support system in times of stress. I think we all sort of had some really great stress relief ways that we sort of have control over on our own and with our kids. But sometimes just having the ability to talk through our frustrations, no matter how big or little it is, with people who know you and care about you and support you, can make a huge impact on minimizing our stress level, right? So we really want to be able to have that support system there that's tight-knit. These can be family members, friends, neighbors, other parents you know, maybe your children's friends' parents, other parents at school or daycare, fellow people that you work with. They could be coworkers, or you can see professionals like a counselor or a therapist, which always is helpful even just for regular life maintenance. Support groups, if you're ever aware of any of those, and anybody in the religious community. I know that's a big support system for many people. So those are all out there, right? We all sort of create our own support systems in the way that best fits us. Is there anybody else that I forgot to add on here? No, it's sort of, can be literally anybody. Sometimes even just in a momentary moment of need, the person next to me at the grocery store is a part of my support system for a second, right? If you ever struggle with finding a support system, please contact Oakland Family Services, or you can see myself or contact me at any time. We can help. It can't, it can never be a nice feeling when you can't figure out who to turn to. So please reach out and we'll do what we can to help. When possible, you can try deep breathing technique. I know a few of us, we've already sort of mentioned this before. There was a recent study in Beijing where participants who had practiced regular deep breathing sessions, when they were interviewed, they reported that they had improved their sustained attention. They were able to pay attention to things longer, and they had improved affect or mood, just better, sort of, they saw their mood as being better. They were also found to have reduced cortisol levels. So they had taken samples before and after, I think, all of their breathing sessions. And the cortisol levels, which are a stress hormone, were actually reduced. So not only were participants in this study reporting these positive effects, but physically these positive effects were seen in their samples. So it's pretty interesting. But deep breathing is not for everybody, right? So it's if you feel this is helpful to you. I do have an example breathing technique if we all want to give it a go. One simple, quick breathing technique, a little bit similar to what you'd mentioned, Kim, is the 4-7-8 breathing. It's easy to remember, so that's why I picked it out, but you can absolutely make up your own breathing technique. This does not have to be sort of a regimented thing. But this technique can be calming to yourself in moments of stress or even trying to go to sleep, which I know I've used it for. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it's just nice to have something to focus on other than, oh, I can't fall asleep. What's going on? And when age appropriate, it can totally be used with your kids if you find that helpful. In moments that are helpful, right? If we're in the middle of an escalated moment, a deep breathing technique might not work. But this technique doesn't require any tools or supplies, so it could just be helpful. So we'll do it all together. The first step, we're going to do a slow 4-second inhale. We're going to hold it for 7 seconds, and then we're going to exhale slowly for 8. Is everybody ready? Okay, so I'm going to count on my fingers. We're going to do a slow 4-second inhale through our nose. Ready? And then a 7-second hold. And then a slow 8-second exhale out through our mouth. All right, did everyone do it? Cool. So we tried it. How's it feel?
Feels good.
It's nice in a moment in the middle of a presentation when we're not having very many active stressors. But maybe in a moment of stress, if you can think of it, taking a moment can be helpful. If your stress level ever becomes unbearable, where your coping mechanisms are not working at all, and your support system is really just unable to help you, and you're just feeling helpless, seeing a mental health professional can really be helpful to find healthy ways to cope. So even just reaching out can be helpful. So I always recommend for people to check out your insurance card. If you have health insurance, you probably want this to be covered by your health insurance. So you can always call the number on the back of your card. You can search your insurance company's website. Now we have all this electronic stuff, so lots of times we can just log into our account and see what's available to us, and that way we can get set up with a professional who we know is covered by our insurance and see what our plan allows. Or Oakland Family Service is always here for you. We have a behavioral health counseling service called Day One, which accepts a variety of insurance plans. We've got the phone number here and our website, or you can always see me and I can help you figure out your next steps to find a provider. If you ever, though, have suicidal thoughts, I ask that you please seek support immediately. That's something that I would want to make sure that you're always able to have someone to contact. So one way you can do that is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a free confidential phone number that's available to absolutely anybody and everybody. The phone number is listed here, and I can always provide that to you if you want to, or you can literally just type in National Suicide Prevention Hotline, or I think I just found it by typing in suicide on the Google or any search engine of your choice. Okay, questions? No? It can be really helpful any time of day, and as parents, we keep crazy hours, so of course, we want to be able to make sure that everyone's got support they need. And sometimes your support system, people who know you well, they may still love you, but they may not always have the best advice. So seeking people sort of outside your situation, depending also on what you want to talk about, can be really, really helpful. So Oakland Family Services is here for you. We have our Before 3 to Succeed program. As parents, we know you're always got that stress, right? To be the best parent you can be and make sure that your kids are growing and thriving. So we have this link right here that you can use to see how your kids are developing in 5 areas. We have language and communication. We have our fine and gross motor skills. Fine motor is those little muscles, gross motor, those big muscles, big actions, problem solving skills, and personal social skills. For all children from 2 months to 5 years old, you can take it as many times as you want, for as many children as you want, anytime, day or night, absolutely for free, and results will be sent to you. So that's always available. The link's here, and I can give it to you in our handouts. And I want to hear from you. How do you feel? Good? Not more stressed?
No, not more stressed.
All right. Any other thoughts on parenting stress, keeping it together, coping mechanisms?
A lot of great useful information. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody.